it's always good in these videos to go with a hot hand. That's what we do in this juvenile turf sprint video by bringing in a guy who is absolutely crushing it on the In the Money Plus side at Keeneland. He always does such a great job, not just on air and in writing, but behind the scenes, where he's been a key player for the last couple of years at In the Money Media. I owe him a lot. He's Eric DeCoster. How are you, my friend?
Doing well. Made sure to wear the Keeneland hat today to celebrate the good meet we had on the plus side.
Excellent. Yeah, and Eric Solomon, no slouch either on the free side as well for those checking out inthemoneypodcast.com. But as we always say, you're only as good as your next one. Your next assignment, should you choose to accept it, is to talk to us about this juvenile turf sprint. Really shapes up as a battle between the local, I guess it's sort of a three-handed battle, right? You've got the Japanese contender, you've got the local contenders, you've got the European contenders. Where should we begin?
I think with the Europeans, I think this is without a doubt the best group of Euros we've seen in this race since its inception back in 2018. I think they've won it the last 2 years, right? But I think it's been a little top heavy with their runners. This year they bring not only the quality, but they also bring the depth. Some horses with good overlapping form from England and Ireland too. And then they have tactical speed, which we rarely get to say about Europeans, which I think once again is going to be a huge asset as we go the 5/8s, the very quick 5/8s at Del Mar.
Flying five, indeed. Who do you think it favors on the European side? One that certainly is worth mentioning, Big Mojo, goes out for last year's winning connections. Is that where your eye is drawn, or in a different direction?
I think he's in with a shot, but I think the horse who beat him last time is going to be the best chance for the Euros. That's Asterius. His trainer, Archie Watson, does exceptional work with 2-year-olds sprinting. If you follow European racing, you know this. He's very good early on with his juvenile runners, has always a good presence at Royal Ascot, and he's sent decent horses here in past few years. They've just been under the misfortune of bad draws, rough trips, but I think this is without a doubt the best horse he's brought. And I think he has the speed, and if he's drawn well, is going to be forward in a race that really doesn't have a lot of pace. We haven't mentioned any of the Americans, but you'd think there'd be more than one horse in there. But our big favorite, Governor Sam, he's really it. So if he's going to be able to sit a good forward trip without anyone else around him or too many other horses around him, he'll be in with a big shot. That's what he's done in Europe really successfully so far.
Let's talk about Governor Sam for a minute. He's got that USA gate speed. We've shown over the years at Ascot how effective that can be, and how, they feels like they've almost changed the way they've trained some of these European runners to deal with our raw speed. Might Governor Sam be able to put that to good use, or do you think he's going to be vulnerable late on at Del Mar?
I think he'll be upgraded because of the lack of other speed in the race. I think it's going to be an asset. If there were other front-running types in here, I'd give him little chance, even though he is coming in with 4 straight wins. Solid enough figures. I looked through past Breeders' Cup juvenile turf sprints, compared them to other American favorites, if you will, and he does not stack up at all with what we've had in recent years. It's very weak on our side, which is kind of weird because this feels like a race that we should have an edge over the Europeans with. But because of how the race is likely to set up, he is upgraded, in my opinion, and isn't a horse that should be disregarded, left off multi-race tickets because of the good trip he should likely get.
When you talk about him being weak compared to other USA juvenile turf sprint contenders, are you looking at like the Beyer speed figure scale? What are you using?
Yeah, mainly the Beyers. He runs mid to high 70s consistently. And if you look at the past, our best runners have hit 80s once or twice at least coming into these races. The last 3 winners haven't had a Beyer at all because they've either been European, or Twilight Gleaming was a weird exception where she didn't get a Beyer from her first American races and then ran in Europe. But point being, even the well-backed American horses that also did run well tend to hit the 80s and even the 90s on a rare occasion coming into these races. So that just goes to once again show our American turf sprinters, the juvenile ones this year, not stacking up like they have in the past.
Well, that makes me want to ask you about this Japanese runner, Ecoro Sieg. We had a lot of positives. Folks can look elsewhere on the In the Money Media YouTube channel and find the video we did previewing their contenders. There was a lot of nice things said about this one. I know in the figure equivalencies, folks can find if they subscribe to the In the Money Plus Breeders' Cup package, inthemoneypodcast.com/plus for that one. This horse you can certainly build a case for. Where do you stand with the runner from the Far East?
He absolutely has a chance because of his early speed as well. I know we only talked about speed horses so far, but these are really it. Asterius, Governor Sam, and now Ecoro Sieg. But if you watch his replays, he's going to be quicker than anybody else. He'll probably find himself on the lead, and then it's just going to be a question of class. It's so hard with these Japanese horses because they're quite literally on an island. There's no way to tell what they're stacking up against. But visually, he passes the eye test. And as you mentioned, I'm sure the comparable figures will as well because of how quick he looks. My one concern is cutting back in distance. He's been going 6 furlongs in Japan. And as we know with turf sprints, every single 100 yards, 110 yards matters. So cutting back could affect him, but he'll have the speed. He'll probably be in front if he breaks well. It's just going to be a question of how he's able to handle these absolutely tougher types coming from Europe as well as Governor Sam.
We're going to give a word from our sponsor. Then, Eric, I'm going to come back to you with an official selection and then maybe let you throw out one more runner at a big price we can think about for exotics. But want to let you know that the Kentucky Derby betting challenge is back, a new major from the horse racing tournament world. Twinspires.com. Feeders and qualifiers are already underway. If you go to twinspires.com and navigate over to tournaments, you'll see it. Should mention also, if you want to get involved in the Breeders' Cup betting challenge, you can do that through Twinspires as well. Check it out over at twinspires.com. Time for the rubber to meet the road, my friend. Who's your idea of the winner of this year's Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint?
I think if he's drawn well, I'm going to go with Asterius. I think that, like I mentioned, Archie Watson, I'm really intrigued by this horse, his barn. I think he deserves a win in this race with how well he does with young sprinters. And if this horse can show that early speed, maybe not be in front in battle with the likes of Ecoro Sieg and Governor Sam, he'll be right up in there, sit the perfect trip and win it.
And with that kind of speed, might even be able to overcome a tricky draw. But I imagine you'd like him best drawn somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, middle to outside, at least where the rider can kind of see the inside, see what happens, and go from there. I always prefer an outside post in a turf sprint. Maybe it doesn't help you save ground, but if you're on a speed horse, you can read the break and go from there.
I like that idea. What about something else that we haven't talked about, or one that we have talked about, but something at a bit more of a price to consider in our wagers?
Yeah, one other favorite that we probably should mention is Aidan O'Brien's Whistle Jacket. This is his A horse. He has 2 in here, as well as Ides of March. But Whistle Jacket's for sure the A horse. This is a Group 1 winner in Europe. I don't know if he has the early speed to go with these types, and I think that puts him at a disadvantage in here. His Group 1 win was over a tough 6 furlongs in France. But he's a nice horse, a lot of class. This is a horse that Aidan O'Brien's been targeting this race with for a long time, for months now. So certainly not one I totally disregard, but he'll be trip dependent. And then one long shot, one other European, Arizona Blaze. He's thrown it down with a few horses we've mentioned, been pretty close on a few occasions, and he doesn't need the lead. He can sit a good pressing trip and try and kick on. I don't love that he hasn't won in a while, but maybe one to consider underneath. He has good Group 1. He's Group 1 placed in Europe this year.
Is there a clear answer to this bonus question I'll ask you? Is there a best closer that's just like waiting to be found in this race? Or with the lack of early speed, is there one who stands above the others in terms of late pace?
I think Chasing Liberty, he's going to be a big long shot. He did not have anything go his way at Keeneland last time out, but his runs before, he closed pretty nicely, maiden win, win via disqualification at Kentucky Downs. A touch short for him, but if they really melt it down early on and you need a closer, or if you think they're going to melt it down at least and you can't find anybody, he's the one. He can fly late. It just might be a touch short for him.
Let's direct people back to the YouTube channel. I know from the stats, most people watching are not subscribers. If you subscribe, that's the only way you're going to see all our exclusive content. Just go to that subscribe button, hit it, click that notification bell. If you want more, much more, check out the In the Money Plus package, inthemoneypodcast.com/plus, to get much more from Eric and the team. That includes folks that have won, just over about 4 million at the last few Breeders' Cup betting challenges. I think you're going to learn a thing or two. inthemoneypodcast.com/plus. Eric, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Twinspires.com are back in the tournament game. You can play the Breeders' Cup betting challenge through Twinspires.com, and you can also start trying to qualify for horse racing's latest major tournament, the 2025 Kentucky Derby Betting Challenge. Go to Twinspires.com and click the Tournaments tab.